chapter 3 in the book of Exodus, we want to look at the story from the standpoint to see what is God doing with Moses. What is he doing with the children of Israel? And then what is God doing with Moses? What is he doing with the children of Israel? What is he doing with the Egyptians? And what does that mean to us? I want to remind us that God had made a promise to Abraham. He told him to leave home and go to a land that I will show you. And Abraham ended up in Canaan, and the only land that he bought was a piece of burial ground. He ended up with that. And so then later, Abraham had Isaac, and then Isaac had Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons. Those 12 sons went down to Egypt along with Jacob's kids, their wives, and what have you. 70-something people went in. Well, a little over 70 people went in. And now God has incubated a nation. As you know, Joseph ended up down in Egypt, ended up being second in charge. Joseph is now dead. His bones are being stored. One of Joseph's requests was, whenever you make it to the promised land, that take my bones back with you. And so Joseph is now dead. We have the Egyptians in charge down in Egypt, and we have the Israelites under a hard taskmaster. But they are crying out to their God, is the situation. They are crying out to God. And as you know, the Pharaoh is somewhat afraid of the Israelites because they were growing so fast. And he made a decree that all the boy babies be killed. And so when Moses' mother had him, she decided she was not going to kill him, but yet she was going to do everything she could to save his life. So when she had him, she put him in a little basket, put him in the Nile River. Pharaoh's daughter ended up finding this Hebrew baby, and she raised him as her son. The daughter suggests to Pharaoh's daughter that he would get a wet nurse, that she would get a wet nurse for the baby, and that wet nurse ended up being his mother. And so Moses was actually raised by his mother. And Moses was raised an Egyptian, although it was obvious that he was an Israelite. And so Pharaoh is now in charge. Moses ended up killing some Egyptian soldiers, or an Egyptian, and bury him in the sand. And now when Pharaoh hears about what Moses has done, although Moses is educated, been an Egyptian now for 40 years, been trained for that long period of time, but when he hears that Moses has killed an Egyptian, now he wants to kill Moses. And so now Moses leaves, and this is where our story picks up, when he leaves and he meets a man that really ends up being his father-in-law. So that's where we are. So what we want to look at tonight is we want to take a look at this story, and we want to ask ourselves, how does this story help us? It's one thing to know the story, but what does this say to us? What message does this send to us? What encouragement does this send to us? What can we draw from hearing about how God used Moses to do what he did? So let's take a look. We entitled this, The Call of the Deliverer. And Moses sees the burning bush. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law. So now, I want you to think about something. I want you to think about how Moses has been raised. He was raised how, class?
As an Egyptian.
As an Egyptian. And was he out in the country or was he in the city?
In the city.
He was in the city. Was he raised poor or rich?
Rich.
So Moses was raised with the best of comforts. He wasn't out in the country. He was not poor. He was raised in the palace. Wasn't sleeping on the ground. Raised in a rich setting. And I want us to think about this. He was raised a rich man. He was raised an educated man. He was raised a privileged man. He had the best of creature comforts. But now, look what he's doing. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law. Now Moses got, you can put it this way, although he was raised with the best of creature comforts, now Moses got mud between his toes. Oh, wow. And I say that symbolically in the sense of saying that now he's a shepherd. Now he's keeping somebody else's flock. He done went from palace to outdoors keeping somebody else's flock. He done went from riches, you may say, to rags. And this was all in God's will. Think about that one. God raised him up, saved his life, let him come up under Egyptian culture, and then brought him out of Egypt, basically making him a shepherd, and now he's keeping Jethro, his father-in-law's flock. Jethro is priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Hebron. So we always think about God in the sense of prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes That's not our calling. God said, I raised you up, I educated you, I prepared you for the job that I have for you. But the job that I have for you, it is not in the palace. Right now it's on the backside of the desert. And if you look at his job, he never really enjoyed that creature comfort anymore once he left. As a matter of fact, the lesson takes off. At least he got a place to stay. But when this lesson, after this lesson takes off, he's not even going to have a place to live no more. Think about that one. Because he's going to be traveling from Egypt, taking the people to the promised land. And so what I want us to think about when we look at this is that God has a certain calling on all of our lives, and regardless of what we might think, that calling sometimes may conflict with what we want or what we desire to do. And what we're going to find out in today's lesson is all of these objections that Moses had. So you're going to find out that Moses did not want the job that he had. So we may dream and we may set goals, but it may not necessarily be what God has laid out for us. So we see here where he's keeping Jethro's flock. He got him down the backside of the desert. He came to Mount Horeb, and the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire in the midst of the bush. Now, oftentimes when people refer to God in the Old Testament, they refer to God initially as the angel of the Lord. Because after a while you're going to hear him talking about who he really is. So here he's identified as the angel of the Lord. It was just a way of expression that when he's first referred to, he's referred to as an angel, but we're going to find out that it is actually God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. So what we're familiar with is this story of a burning bush that was not consumed. And we see that, which is now referred to as a flame of fire, is in the bush, but is not burning up. And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight while the bush is not burned. So now Moses began to investigate. And I just want to read this. And when the Lord saw, now notice what happened here. At first referred to him as an angel, right? And the angel of the Lord. But now it says, and when the Lord saw. Do y'all see how quick that turned? Now it really identified who it really was. At first it's the angels of the Lord in verse 1 or 2. But now it said, And the angel of the Lord, in verse 4, saw that he turned aside, and God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I. This is God communicating with Moses. And he said, Draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. So now, what I want to tell you is that God introduced himself to Moses. God introduced himself to Moses. And oftentimes, when God speaks to us, we will know it's him. Oftentimes, when God communicates with us, we will know it's him. When I was in college, I got into a situation to where could nobody really tell me anything because I was confused. And it came from going to church, and I went to another church, to a Church of Christ, and that was the first time I was exposed to that particular denomination. And they taught me some stuff that I hadn't heard before. And I really didn't know what to do. I couldn't talk to nobody because the way they taught me, I couldn't trust anybody. And so one Saturday morning, I woke up and I began to cry. I didn't know what was wrong with me. And it scared me. So I drove home 2 hours. It took me 2 hours to get home. I drove home. I cried all the way home. Cried. When I got home, you know, my parents talked to me, and I said, I don't know what's wrong with me. And cried all day, and finally around 10 o'clock that night, I went to bed, and I went to bed crying. This time, when I prayed, I did not say amen. I told the Lord, I said, this is too heavy, I can't handle this. And right on the edge of my sleep, the Lord said to me, leave that church. That's because I didn't know which way to go. And at the time that I needed it, that could nobody else help me, the Lord himself spoke to me and told me to leave that church. And for the first time since I had joined that church, when I got back to school, they told me that the pastor was in my dorm, and I sent for the pastor. And he came to my room, and I told him, I said, the Lord sent you here tonight. And he said, yeah, I believe he did. He said, that means you got something to tell me, right? I said, yes. I said, the Lord said for me to tell you that I'm leaving the church when I'm coming back. He said, that could have been the devil. I said, the Lord said, my sheep know my voice, and the stranger they will not follow. And for the first time since I've known that man, that was the first time that he couldn't say anything. And I began to study from that point on their denomination. And now I know the errors in their teaching. But I was at a phase where nobody could teach me because I didn't know which way to go. So the Lord taught me. And so I sat down and began to study my Bible to find out for myself. But my point is, God introduced himself to Moses. And when you have a relationship with God, he will talk to you and you will know it's him. God introduced himself to Moses. God spoke 6 words to Moses. Let's look at these 6 words. A word of address. God called Moses 2 times. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. He called him twice. So this is a word of address. This is a word of address. God addressed him. Called him twice. The second word is a word of warning. Moses must come no closer. And he said, draw not nigh hither. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thy stand is holy ground. I wish that we could learn that. That any time that we are in the presence of God, that we are standing on holy ground. And oftentimes, it seems like that we're living in a time where we have lost our sense or our awe of the presence of God. Our honor and our respect. Whenever we're in the presence of God, we must realize that we're on holy ground. Put off your shoes. Put off your shoes. Your shoes is dirty. You got to be clean if you're going to come before me. This is a holy place. So first we had a word of address. Then we had a word of warning. Now we got a word of identity. God will reveal to you who he is. God identified himself as God your Father. Moreover, I said, I am God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. Yes.
Was this the burning bush? Or was
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, when God identified himself, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God is telling him who he is. So he will not have any doubt. And oftentimes, when God is guiding us, he will take away all doubt on who he is, of who is talking to you now. And he identified himself to Moses. And Moses, when he realized who he was talking to, look what he did. He hid his face. And he was afraid to look upon God. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord high and lifted up. His train filled the temple. So on and so on. And he said, woe is me, for I am undone. He had seen God, and he says, I'm undone. In other words, I'm going to die because I've seen God. Here is that Moses hid his face, and he was afraid to look upon God. He had that sense of awe. God has heard the people and commands Moses to lead them out of Egypt. The fourth word is the word of compassion. 4 precious indications of divine grace was given. I have seen, I have heard their cry, I know, and I'm come down. Now look at this. A word of compassion. just like when the Lord spoke to me, I knew who it was. Just like when the Lord called me into the ministry, I knew who it was. And just like he spoke a word of compassion, he did the same thing to me. Because when he spoke to me in my calling, before speaking to me, he showed me who I was, and it broke me down. And I said, how can I preach now that you have showed me, in other words, how nasty I am, how filthy I am? And then he ran my mind back to Isaiah, when he said, for I'm a man of unclean lips, and dwell among people with unclean lips. And then the angel took that golden tongue and got the live coal, placed on his lips, and purged him. And when I questioned the Lord about me preaching, about my inability to preach, that's when he showed me that passage. A word of compassion. This word of compassion is, look at this. 4 precious indicators of divine grace were given. I have seen, I have heard, and I know, and I am come down. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt. I see their condition. He's talking to Moses. I see their condition. But not only do I see their afflictions, I have heard their cry by reasons of their taskmasters. They were not just in Egypt, but they were crying out to God while they were in Egypt. And God said, I heard them crying. This tells us something about God. That whenever there is something that is bothering us, whenever there's something that just weighing on us and seem like it just will not go away, we need to cry out to God. That's what we can learn from this. He said, I heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. And look at this. And I know their sorrows. I've seen their afflictions. I've heard their cry. I know who's doing it. And I know their sorrows. I know how this is making them feel. I understand what they're going through. And now I am come down. Word of compassion. God is saying, I'm getting ready to do something about it. Class, what is God getting ready to do? He said, I am come down. But what is he going to do? Look ahead.
Solve their problem.
Huh?
Deliver. Deliver the people. Deliver his people.
What is he doing right now?
He's talking to the person that he's going to use to deliver.
Uh-huh. He said, I'm come down. But he didn't go to Egypt. He's on the backside of the desert talking to Moses.
Yeah.
And Moses is going to do it. And he said, I'm going to be with you while you're doing it.
Man.
When God got ready to deliver the children of Israel, he didn't come down and do it himself. He came down and talked to Moses and told Moses, I'm going to use you to do it. And I'm going to be with you. You think about that one. We need to know that regardless of what we think about ourselves, that when God get ready to use you, he can use anybody he chooses. Anyone he chooses to do whatever job that needs to be done, regardless of what we think. So, word of compassion. Fifth word. Word of promise. I've come down to deliver them out of the land of the Egyptians. That's why I'm coming. Here is my mission. And now my mission is your mission. To deliver them out of the land of Egypt and bring them up out of the land unto a good land and a large land, let me just throw that word in, and a land flowing with milk and honey. This is where I'm going to take them. I'm bringing them out of Egypt, and I'm bringing them, he said, up and out. I'm bringing them up and out of Egypt, and I'm going to take them to a good land. I'm going to take them to a large land, and I'm going to take them to a land that is flowing with milk and honey. Onto a place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Somebody's in that land now, but I'm going to give it to you. What does that say? What does that say to you? Class? Y'all even scared to say it, aren't you? I know y'all see it.
Gonna take over.
You gonna do what?
Take over.
Yeah.
It don't matter who's in your way.
When there is somebody in that land, but God has said, I'm getting ready to give this land to y'all, so you got to take what's yours. But I don't like to fight.
Got to do it.
Sometime when God has something for you, you gotta take it. He said, now, I'm going to give you the vision. I'm going to give you the ability, but I'm not going to do it for you. I'm going to give you everything that you need in order that you may take it. But you got to take it. I'm bringing you to a place that is a good land, a large land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Milk and honey means milk, plenty cattle, honey got bees over there. In other words, I'm taking you to a rich land. That's really what he's saying. A land that is rich with minerals. And guess what? To this day, that land is still the richest place in the world when it comes to minerals. To this day, still is. And that's why a lot of the Europeans that went over there and took over. And the people that's in that land are poor, but the Europeans is taking the resources out of it. But that land is still rich. And then finally, a word of challenge. Moses was informed that he was being sent to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Now watch this. And therefore, behold, the crowd of the children of Israel come up to me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Now watch this. Come now, therefore. Look at this. I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. There's your challenge right there. I will send thee unto Pharaoh. That you may bring them out of Egypt. Man. This is one man going up against a kingdom.
Wow.
You think about that. One man, not just a kingdom, but at the time, this is the most powerful nation in the world. And God is going to use one man to bring down this nation and force this nation to let the children of Israel, or Jacob, let them go free. One man going against the most powerful nation in the world. One man. Have you ever thought about that? So, you know what this is really saying? This is really saying that when God tells you to do something, it doesn't even matter what you're coming up against. When God tells you to do it, it doesn't even matter. Because this is a demonstration. He's talking to Moses. It says, come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Moses. One man. Getting ready to go in there, make a king, do something that he does not want to do, and bring out thousands of people.
They was ready to come out, wasn't they?
Hmm? Until they got out, then they wanted to go back.
Well, why would they want to go back? They going to Canaan.
Short-sighted.
People like that.
They like Canaan's the bomb. I mean, Canaan's the place.
But they don't have it yet. But even when they get there, they got to fight for it.
Yeah.
But God had to allow things to become so bad to make them want to come out. When you're at ease in Zion, you don't want to move. Just like great friendship, that's what we are now. We done got too coming. Ain't no battles to fight. People that's coming, they're faithful. They're paying their tithe. They're working. We done got comfortable. So we don't want to move. We don't see a need to grow. Because I live in a decent house. I drive a decent car. I eat what I want to eat. I wear what I want to wear. I'm comfortable. Things are not perfect. Things could be better. I'm comfortable. But do you know how many people are not comfortable? I teach them every day. Do you know how many people that's really suffering, that wish they could be where you are? How many people that just... Not only do they not know the Lord, but see, there's a penalty for not knowing the Lord. Because you live a certain way, and you're constantly doing stuff to destroy yourself, and you don't even know any better. So the way God brought these folk out, he allowed, these are his people now, he allowed them to be enslaved and made them dissatisfied with their condition. And it wasn't until they were so dissatisfied that they wanted to come out, and then once they, now this is what, 40 years? It wasn't until they wanted to come out as a people. And then he sent a deliverer. He said, it don't matter what the king wants. It's time for me to come out now. When Jesus got ready to heal that impotent man, guess what Jesus asked? Do you want to be made whole? Well, that question to ask the sick person. Do you want it? Some folk love being sick. Some folk love mess. Some folk love confusion. They don't want peace. There's peace, they'll break it. They're afraid of themselves. They're afraid of their own mind. They got to have noise all the time so they won't think.
You know, I used to be like, afraid if everything goes so good that something's going to happen bad. And I used to be afraid when things was going so well that I would think, that something is going to happen so bad. So I already, just like you, I heard the Lord speak to me and say, when it start happening, don't be afraid. Totally just as clear, don't be afraid. Because I was living.
But you don't have to wonder what something bad going to happen. It's going to. You might as well enjoy the good. Because something bad is going to happen if you keep living. All right. And Moses said unto God, who am I that I should go unto Pharaoh, that I should bring forth the children of Israel out? Who am I? I am one man, and you're talking about me going to Pharaoh and making him do what he does not want to do. What can I do? He felt his own insecurity. And God said, certainly I will be with thee, and this shall be a token unto thee that I have sent thee. When thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt, ye shall serve God upon this mountain. Now, what is the token? I should give you a token. What's the token? In other words, God says, I'm going to be with you. So what's the token?
His staff?
He told him I'm going to be with you. But he said, I'm going to give you a token that I'm with you. So what's the token? He says, I will be with thee, and this shall be a token unto thee that I have sent thee. In other words, I am going to prove that I'm going to be with you. And I'm going to give you a token. What's the token?
Said that.
It's in the text. I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to prove I'm with you. I'm going to give you a token.
The Spirit?
Look
He
at it,
sent
look.
them.
Huh?
And it shall be.
What's the token?
Him actually going.
Is it a noun? If it's a noun, this is what he asked for, what he's taking to.
What's the token?
It's love for him. I think it's a
Peter
place.
just told him, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to prove I'm going to be with you
It's here.
by giving you a token.
He's the token.
The text tell you what the token is.
Moses.
Read the text. Stop guessing and read it.
He says he's gonna be with me, so that would be what this.
What is this?
Him.
That sign right there.
It's a colon, and it explains it, the mountain.
Now has brought forth the people out of Egypt. Oh, he's gonna bring them out. He's gonna bring
What's the token?
Canaan people. Where we going? The
The
destination.
Y'all getting closer.
People out of Egypt, ye shall serve God on this mountain. And thou hast brought forth people out of Egypt.
Always look at your
Ye
punctuation.
shall serve God upon this mountain.
So Sister Davis, we got closer than anybody else.
So it's him bringing the people out of Egypt.
Yes, that's the token.
What'd you say?
Say it again.
Okay, I was wrong.
The token is Moses bringing the people out of Egypt.
Yeah, when you bring them out, then you'll know I was with you.
Oh my God.
That's the token.
What?
The destination.
How is that beneficial? Like,
Look at there. That's the colon right
Yeah, I
there.
was with you.
I get
What
it.
I tell you, always believe what you read.
Yeah, but
It's almost like when it says including and then it names it all.
my thing is, okay, I got a question. God proves himself after we have done what he told us to do.
Then you know he was with you.
Then you know, what's...
He'll tell you to go do it. He'll
Oh,
tell
so
you-
that's where faith comes in.
He will tell you to go do it, and then when you go do it, he'll give you victory.
Yeah.
And your victory is evidence that he was with you.
So that's the faith is doing it, and then your faith was proven by you being able to successfully.
The results.
Yeah, yeah.
He said, here's what I want you to go do. And I'm going to give you a token. And the token, and he said, I'm going to be with you. And the token of me being with you is you will bring forth the people out of Egypt. And you bring them out. And when you start worshiping me on this mountain, then you'll know I was with you.
Right.
What did Moses say? How can I do this? Who am I? Who am I to do this? That was the question that he asked. Who am I to do this? It's all right, I'm going to give you a token. When you bring him out and come and worship me on this mountain, then you know. Then you know what. All right, that's verse 12. We got 10 more verses that we'll cover next week. Huh?
What?
Spring break?
What'd you say?
I said I got 10 verses left.
And you'll cover next week.
So I cover next week. All right.
Well, I won't be here next week.
Okay. All right, any prayer requests before we close with prayer?
Yeah, I need a whole lot of it.
I mean, that was pretty evident when you told me you wasn't gonna be here.
Well, that's because I'm not bringing no baby with me.